Who told Neil Druckmann it would be a good idea to end the Last of Us series? In an interview with Variety back in April, Neil Druckmann, the co-president of Naughty Dog, told readers in a response to inquiries about more of The Last of Us to not bet on it. And if that sounded strangely stiff for how I normally talk, yes, it was a little bit because I'm not used to reading off of a script. But I didn't want to screw it up and I was citing a source, so you can just shut up and deal with it, okay? I'm trying to be a little more professional about this. I don't know why. It's not like I want to bring you guys something entertaining to watch. Anyway, Neil Druckmann saying that no more The Last of Us content is pretty interesting to me because I feel like he's closing the door on an infinitely large possibility that hasn't really touched base with modern media, in my opinion. I might be jumbling my words here, and maybe this is why I need to start writing scripts. But imagine, if you will, the Life is Strange series. Now, I know it's controversial, right? A lot of people had issues with changing of characters, not liking the characters. I don't think the issue really laid with changing the characters, more so in they didn't like the characters and the stories that came in. I've heard a lot about people don't like some of the writing choices or some of the narratives, and that's to each their own. I really liked Life is Strange 2, pretty comparably to how much I liked Life is Strange 1, Before the Storm, and Double Exposure. And not all of those games got warm reviews from everybody. Not any of those games were universally acclaimed or anything of the sort. But why do I bring up Life is Strange, you're wondering? At this point, probably, because I'm kind of just rambling now. I bring up Life is Strange because I think The Last of Us, which for some reason those titles keep jumbling up for me, could take a very similar approach in the sense that the IP does not have to be centralized solely on Ellie. Because that's where it is now, right? With Joel gone, it's just about Ellie now. And they kind of brought in a lot of Abby, but I don't think Abby would be adopted very well as a main character solely because of the way they introduced her, the method they used to introduce her. I think she was a great writing tool for what she needed to be, and I do think that her story was pretty well told, in my opinion, in The Last of Us Part 2, but I don't think she could be the star of her own game now because she's rooted in so much of a hated role by the community. But I still think that they could start coming out with more games set in The Last of Us universe. We could come out with a game called Remembering Them, a Last of Us story, or The Last of Us story, or however you would say it, right? We're getting some game, I forget what it was called, that was just revealed at the Xbox Showcase that was a Plague's Tale story. I think it was called Resonance, or something of the sort, and it's like, it's a possible thing to do, you know, you can continue telling stories set in the same lore sets, in the same worlds, same universes as other stories. It doesn't have to be locked in. You know, my buddies and I have said for years that as much as we love Master Chief from Halo, he kind of needs to retire. You know, they need to take him out of the limelight because there's only so many stories you can tell with the same character over and over and over again. So, at that point, you introduce more characters, you help people get attached to those characters. It's always going to be a rough transition, especially if you send them off in a bad way. Like, if Ellie would have died at The Last of Us Part 2, I would have said the IP's dead. Absolutely. You can't kill off Joel and Ellie in the same game and expect the fan base to take it well. And they didn't, obviously, because we've played the game by now, we've seen the show, yada yada yada. But leaving Ellie's story as open-ended as it was leaves the door to open down the line if they ever choose to return to her or have her pop up in other people's stories. Tell other stories. We can follow this dude who was going to prison when the outbreak started, and his story starts in a prison where, you know, they were holed up for a while and everything, and we get a Last of Us game set in the early days. Or, hey, this child was a literal kid when it started and is now in their teenage years floating from place to place, having learned how to survive on their own, yada yada yada. I personally think there's a lot of versatility available with The Last of Us, with the mechanics that they've set up, the gameplay style. Just, there's so many options that they're closing the door to if they choose not to continue with the IP. Not to mention, we have games, we have a show, I'm pretty sure they made comics. There's nothing saying they can't start coming out with books if they haven't already. Add on to the story that way as well. Halo has a ton of books. They're all pretty good, all the ones that I've heard. Warhammer is notorious for having books that supplement their lore set and everything. There's viability behind the text-based media, text-based entertainment, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, I just might be on a soapbox, so what are your thoughts on Druckmann's statement and on the concepts that I've brought up? Just kidding. I don't care. I, for some reason, can't remember my own outro, so we're just gonna go with this. I hope this video has been entirely unhelpful to you, and I hope you have a bad day. So, and you know, to each their own in that regard. Like, I really like The Last of Us 2. Why do I keep saying The Last of Us? Life is Strange Part 2. Part 2? Are you fucking kidding me? You know, it's, my outro. Why am I forgetting?